What's going on, man?
Racing through a turnstile.
Turnstile. Yeah, dude, the new record is out. Never enough. Tell me your thoughts. What do you think?
Never enough. Well, I've had enough. I will say this. I'll go out on a limb. We're going to put it right out there right away. I'm going to say that they are the Police. If you remember back in the day, the Police were a punk band. Everybody liked them. They were energetic. And then they turned into the Police that we know today. Synchronicity and all of that stuff. And I think that bands, talented bands, and Turnstile is a talented band, evolve and greatness does ensue. Unfortunately, the fans that get them to where their stardom becomes get left in the dust. And for me, Never Enough is kind of the end of the hardcore era of Turnstile.
I'm new to Turnstile, as you know. I've heard some of the stuff that you've shared with me over the years, but just never really got into them. And so listening to this, knowing some of their traditional hardcore roots, this was not really what I was expecting from them. Interesting that you brought up the Police. One of the standout tracks for me, Look Out For Me, track, I don't know what it is, 7, 8, something like that. The guitar tones in there, it seemed like a mix between Andy Summers from the Police and Alex Lifeson from Rush, with a real crystalline, clean guitar tone. And then the song kicks in and, changes up pretty quickly.
If you go back and you listen to Pushing Me Away, that song is just chugga chugga riff chugga chugga chugga, and that's from Step to Rhythm. That was when I got turned on to Turnstile, and the year was 2013.
Oh wow, is it that early? Okay.
Yeah, and what really got me, the record that really got me, was Nonstop Feeling. I was running away from a hurricane in Florida when I first moved down there in 2017, and Nonstop Feeling had come out the year before. I just found it, and I was listening to Gravity and Phased Out, which great songs. This record, Nonstop Feeling, felt like as close as you were going to get to Rage Against the Machine at the time.
Yeah.
And if you go back and you listen to Out of Rage, it's Brandon Yates was as close to Zach De La Rocha as you were going to get at the time. Then they evolved along. They put out Time and Space. There's a song Generator that was on there that was the beginning of this melodic meets hardcore type sound. And then it just evolved right into Glow On, which is, the pinnacle. But Glow On is the reason why it's the high watermark for Turnstile, is because the hardcore elements still remain. And we can talk about the changes in, band members, but I do believe that the change in band member is the reason why they have gone full on, commercial alternative rock with Never Enough.
It seems to me that this album, listening to it from a pretty objective viewpoint, I can see this record being one of those albums that 15, 20 years from now, people look back on it, it's going to have a spot in the history books. That it feels that way to me. And in reading about this record and some reviews and people's thoughts, there are comparisons to Nirvana's Nevermind.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes sense to me. I think objectively, it's a really, really well put together album. It's produced great. There's tons of ear candy throughout, little production tricks that they put in that, ooh, what was that? So in that regard, it's a super solid album, and I enjoyed the listen. It is, I'm a fan of genre hopping and genre skipping within songs. They do a lot of that through this album. I mean, you start with a sort of a synth wave rock song with the opening track, the title track.
Running from yourself now, getting what you told. Never let your guard down, anywhere you go.
Then it goes to a more punk flavor. Then like a Brit pop vibe.
I'm happy to give myself away.
Then Dreaming starts with like synth horns in the intro and things like that. So it kind of bounces around between a bunch of different genres, which I'm cool with. I'm fine with that. It makes for maybe, and this will probably be a divisive sentiment, but it seems like kind of a disjointed album to me in that regard. With that said, though, I think a lot of the interludes and the transitions from one song to the next are really well done, and there's some really cool ones in there. In fact, the last two tracks, Time Is Happening into Magic Man, Time Is Happening is shorter song, kind of an anthemic pop punk track. And then it's got this long, drawn out, ethereal transition that goes right into the closer, Magic Man, which is its own kind of interesting song. I thought it was a pretty bold choice for this band, given all the I don't want to say pop punk, but the hardcore and punkish vibes, to close the album out with such a calm, serene track. I thought that was an interesting choice.
I Care, I think, is probably going to be a really big song. There's a reason why they were on Fallon, playing that the other night. They start off with this very alternative rock type sound. And then there's a fairly, a pretty hard riff for alternative rock that kicks in. And, you see Brendan Yates bouncing around the stage and everybody's going crazy. It's not nearly as heavy as anything that they've done in the past. But going from super soft to something that's kind of heavy with a fairly, some hardcore, tones in there still with the guitar riffs, works, right? It becomes that much heavier when you're that much softer. And I think that they have mastered that. And the hard parts are not nearly as offensive and are much more welcoming now. When you go super soft at the beginning. And look, what's missing for me is, in the end of the day, I do believe that Brady Ebert, he was a short guy with a bucket hat most of the time, doesn't look like a rock star, did not have sex appeal that, say, maybe Brandon Yates does with his big muscles out on stage and stuff. And look, I know he was kicked out of the band for doing drugs, supposedly, but all of a sudden you got Meg Miller, cute girl, playing guitar in there, and they swap out heavy riffs for sonically driven, kind of guitar solos from Meg. And you can see where maybe a record label might have said something or did that or had a seat at the table on it. I don't know. We'll probably never know. But what's missing is Brady Ebert. He wrote some of those killer riffs that have been in previous albums. Glow On. I mean, if you go back and you listen to that album, some of the songs that are on that record are absolutely still grounded in hardcore. Holiday, it's a fucking badass riff in there. Mystery is just a ripper. Blackout, ripper. And the ripping parts on this record just don't bite. They're not hardcore riffs anymore. And that's fine. Again, the reference to the Police. Old school bands of Turnstile, bye. The bus has left the station.
Yeah.
But for folks the masses that want to go to a show and get on stage with, the band and jump around and carry on and pretend that they're at a hardcore show, go ahead. You can't take away the music library. They can still go and play those old songs, but they don't. They mostly play Glow On and Never Enough, and that's fine. That's well within their right. But they really are missing a good portion of their music library. That's pretty badass.
What's your take on the perception that this new album, Never Enough, is Glow On 2.0?
It sounds exactly the same. I mean, the production qualities. I'd say the biggest difference between the two records is the riffs are not heavy. The riffs are radio rock, or alternative rock, or whatever you want to label them as now. But from a production standpoint, it sounds exactly the same. It sounds like it could have been the same recording session.
Yeah, reading through some Reddit threads about this record, there were people that were like track by tracking, making comparisons
Yeah.
from the last album to this one. And you being a fan for a long time now, I thought I'd be interested to get Derek's take to see how accurate you think that is.
Yeah, I mean, Mystery and Never Enough are almost, you could put them side by side. They're almost the same. I mean, the only difference is Mystery is a little heavier.
I was just going to say, yeah, that's seems to be another prevailing attitude, that this is not softer, but doesn't have quite the teeth that Glow On and certainly prior records did.
No, there's very little teeth on this record. And you know me, we talk about this all the time. Like, I hit 50 and I'm, more interested in listening to Gruesome, the death metal band that I'm into right now, than I am listening to soft stuff. I just, again, I don't know what's happened to me, but yeah, I mean, if there's no teeth on it, I'm not interested.
Well, it's when I was listening to this, I kept thinking to some parallels between this album and Sleep Token's latest album.
Sure.
Where they do a lot of genre hopping in there, where it goes from very soft and calm and serene to ripping.
Yeah.
Of course, not as much of that really super heavy stuff here with Turnstile, but yes, I felt some parallels between those two records.
It just, the selling out thing. I hate the term selling out, but we are living in a time where it seems like a lot of bands are cashing in on commercial success. And I'm not saying that they can't afford bread, or milk or eggs or any of that stuff.
Groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries.
But what I am saying is, we are living in a time of extreme capitalism. And the reason why everything costs so much damn money is because of corporate greed. And record labels are probably no different, and putting a ton of pressure on some of these young, influential, talented minds to go make a buck. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to call it out like I see it. We've seen this happen a million times over. You and I have been around the music industry, and bands we like sell out. Then there's Meshuggah, who doesn't.
Thank you, Meshuggah, for not selling out, by the way. But I'm interested to see, again, I've read a fair amount about this album and people's perception of it. I'm curious to see who agrees, well, more specifically with you, because you've got more history with the band than I do.
Look, if you're going to be on a metal magazine cover or metal magazine covers, or you're going to accept, press requests from metal, but you're not metal, it's a little weird. And that's what happened with Sleep Token. But on Turnstile's front, somehow, and you watch some of the videos of them right now, they're still sharing the stage with the fans. And they are one of the hottest bands going, and I got to give them credit for that. Are they writing music that's hardcore, that fits in with, what hardcore is, and sharing the stage and having people stage dive? Not really.
Right.
Not at all. And I find it strange that the fans are still looking past what they have become and freaking out and flipping out and doing hardcore shit to alternative rock, music. And great, good brainwashing, good for Turnstile. We'll see, we'll see over time what people say about this record. But I think Glow On was their high watermark. I really do. I think it was, talk about genre dropping or genre crossing. Absolutely did that, but still stayed grounded in hardcore. They betrayed, my trust as a fan of hardcore with this record.
Well, like I said earlier, I came at this with from a pretty objective standpoint, and I listened to this record and thought, yep, I feel like this is one that's gonna stick around and be revered as time goes on. Would you say that could be the case with this album, or any prior Turnstile? Would Glow On be that record for you that you'll look back 15, 20 years from now and go like, that was the one?
Well, right now, I mean, iTunes always highlights the best records. I think that Glow On is the record that put Turnstile on the map. This might be the album that removes them from hardcore
but takes them to a bigger audience.
Yeah, bigger
Yeah.
audience. And I know they did a movie for, the entire record, and
Yeah.
people were really psyched about that. And Metallica did the same thing with 72 Seasons. Look, they're a big band now. And I don't suspect that in 6 months from now, you're going to see too many fans getting up on stage. They're going to be playing festivals. You're not going to be able to get to them.
Mhm.
They're already all over the summer European circuit of festivals. And so for the fans that are able to get on stage and spend time with Mr. Yates, do it. I think that he probably is becoming the voice of, a generation. He's got a very rebellious voice when he decides to write rebellious music. And I think that they're incredibly talented. I wish them the best. I don't suspect that we will be reviewing them in the, a metal podcast anymore, because they've ascended. And again, I'm not saying that ascending to commercial success is,
Right.
an ascension, but they've left the nest, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't
The DIY hardcore nest.
Yeah, it's just done. It's over. And that's how I felt. And, my friend Matt, shout out to him. We talk about, Turnstile. We've been really into Turnstile for a long time. We loved Glow On. We played the hell of it. We kept trying to get our schedules to work to go see them on the Glow On tour a couple of years ago. We couldn't do it. And now we're kicking ourselves because I don't really want to see them now.
Yeah.
And he was equally disappointed in the record as well. He's like, it's okay, but I'm not going to go back and listen to it. I'm going to listen to the Glow On and everything before that if I'm going to listen to Turnstile. And what's sad for me is I'm a jerk. And you can call me a jerk, but as soon as a band sells out, that's it. Their backlog is dead to me. Like Ghost, I'm like, love their backlog. Don't want to listen to it because I know what they turn into. I know the end of the story, and I don't like the end of the story.
You guys, listen to this song I just wrote. It's called I Hate You Guys. I hate you guys. You guys are assholes.
Yeah. You mentioned the visualizer for this album that they put together. I don't know a movie, a visualizer, what have you. And again, I don't recall if it was a Reddit thread or some other message board, but people were talking about, they saw it just over this past weekend and how much they loved it and what an unbelievable experience it was. And I mean, just lauding, praise on it, which is great. I'm not taking anything from it, but somebody commented, I'm hearing far more about how awesome the visual aspect was than the music.
Yeah.
And this person, I'll see if I can find it. We'll put it up in the edit. But they were like, yeah, I find it telling that you're all talking more about the visuals than the music that the visuals are supposed to be accompanying.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, as soon as we get off this podcast, I'll be deleting it from my iTunes. I don't want it to come on shuffle. I don't want to listen to it again. I'm not interested in it. Again, it's not a bad record. It's just not a hardcore record.
It's not what you want. What you want from them. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, when you set an expectation of, and you build a fan base up, and it's not like this happened quickly. Like, I mentioned this with Sleep Token. I mean, Sleep Token had commercial success with one record, and then all of a sudden, they're either, completely selling out and getting soft. The Turnstiles had a pretty long history of being a hardcore band and building up a following and hitting the road and being road warriors. And to do that to your longtime fans is disappointing. And I like to put myself in there as a fairly longtime fan. I've been a fan of them for 9 years. It's disappointing, but it's kind of like, you just move on. And I've moved on from Ghost, and I never was part of the Sleep Token, so I can move on from them easily as well.
Well, this is something that gets brought up every few episodes that we have, or every few albums that we talk about. Do bands have the right to evolve and change their styles? And of course they do, but they do so at risk of alienating at least some portion of their fan base. And I'm going to try not to judge them too harshly, a band, for making a stylistic change, because they're evolving, they're older, their mindset changes, different things are important to them. But I can be unhappy about what it is that they're doing now versus what they did then.
I will say this, the metal community is forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is, if you look at Metallica, they did Load, Reload, they did Saint Anger. For me, those are 3 dumpster fires. They are absolute dog shit compared to what they were with Ride the Lightning, Master Puppets, Justice.
Oh, God. Yeah, the
right?
first four are brilliant.
Yeah, the first. I mean, it just, you can't compare, but to completely abandon your fan base the way that they did for more commercial success, it sucks. But they came back. They came back and they started writing more riff-driven metal, with Hardwired to Self-Destruct and 72 Seasons. And, Death Magnetic was an attempt, but it just wasn't, it was very thin. It was poorly executed, but they tried. And the fact that they're filling football stadiums up would suggest that the metal community forgave them. They did. And so I think that bands they can do what they want and they can sell out and they can cash in on commercial success, but that flash in the pan is a flash in the pan a lot of times. And then eventually you're going to have to go crawling back to your fans that got you there. And Metallica learned that, and they're the biggest, band going.
Yeah. So do you foresee 10 years from now, Turnstile putting out an album of just straight hardcore, music in your face kind of record?
It wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't. I think that the mainstream is fickle. I think that whatever the hot thing is at the moment. I mean, look at Katy Perry. She was like the biggest thing going for a while, and then she disappeared, and then she went up on a Bezos ship, his giant penis.
Katy Perry, I just want to congratulate you on being the first astronaut to sing in space for real.
Thanks, Jeff. It was one small step for women, one giant leap for my Lifetime's tour. By the way, it's Captain Perry now.
Now all of a sudden she's filling stadiums again, but for a while she had to sell her music library to make ends meet. So I don't know. I think that it wouldn't surprise me if Turnstile came back. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if Tobias Forge of Ghost goes and writes some more songs like Mummy Dust with the low end guttural growl and some kicking riffs and gets back to his roots and tries to draw me and my friend Matt back in, because we loved Ghost early on too. So it's very disappointing, that when that happens. But I guess you have to monetize the commercial success when you can, and that's what's going on right now for a lot of bands.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see what the rest of the world thinks over the next couple of weeks and months as the album, settles into everybody's consciousness.
Germinates. Well, I wonder what's going on in your tiny little brain and what's coming up, down the road here for reviews. I know you think sometimes, you're all jawline and good looks and, but let's see what this tiny brain comes up with for the next review.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I find it.
I know it's hard for you to think.
I know it is. It's difficult. Go fuck yourself now. All right, man. Good shit. I will see you next time.